Tech Talk, coast to coast.
All right, folks, here it is. We are joined by Trainer Cliff today. We got a combo with Stir It Up and TTJ Tech. How you doing, Cliff?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
Comfortable weather here in Minnesota for winter, that is. I mean, we're 28 above. It's better than 28 below.
Now, that's what I was just going to say. So 28 degrees, that's actually only a few degrees colder than we are today. We're about high 30s, I think, and dropping. We're expecting ice. So, interesting. Well, we've got lots and lots to share with people, I guess. We're both getting into more with you've been doing YouTube for a while now, actually, because, of course, you've been hosting the classes and the tutorials and so forth on the YouTube page. Are you pleased with how that's going?
Yes, I am. We started that last year with the iPad for all computing class last spring of 2021. So we started. I don't even know what made us do that. I guess maybe because it was an easier way to. Oh, that's what happened. I figured out a way to get them up there because we were using Google Drive. Yeah, anyway, we'll leave that for another day. Anyway, we were using Google Drive, and you were putting the recording in there. and people were a little confused on how to get to the audio to save the audio. So on top of putting them in Google Drive, as well as I would post them on YouTube at the same time. And that seemed to go off well, and it was an easier way. I mean, who doesn't use YouTube, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, that's just it. It's an amazing platform,
right? And then Google Drive made you jump through hoops just to save the audio because we were using Classroom. So
exactly. And with YouTube, there's no subscription needed. I mean, of course, it's beneficial to have an account, but anybody can access YouTube. So we're very, very excited. And of course, we both have some things going on that we're really excited about and promoting. And I guess, which one would you like to talk about first? We got a class coming up. We got new shows and podcast episodes and so forth. So
we can talk about the current class that's going on right now, which is more with the Mac. We launched in January. Last year, we called it Month with the Mac, but two reasons. One, I don't think a month is enough to teach the basics on getting you started.
No.
And two, I think you can do more with your Mac than you can with any other operating system. I mean, it might be a little biased, but I've been using the Mac for over 10 years now, and I use that other platform for probably a good 15 to 20, going all the way back to high school. So I'm not just saying it just because Apple is Apple, and people think that we're Apple fanboys, which I probably guess I am, since I have probably every Apple device in my house except the Mac Pro.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I we both fall into that category. But yeah, what has amazed me about the Mac class is the overwhelming response. I mean, the popularity of it has far exceeded what I think either one of us thought, because we looked at it and we said a lot of the people out there just will not switch from Windows no matter what we tell them. And secondly, a lot of them won't spend, $1,000 plus to get a new Mac system. But that has not proven to be the case. And we have had an incredible turnout for this class.
Yeah, we almost doubled our numbers from last year. Last year we had 46 people register, and then probably 75 or 80 that would actually listen to the recording, because you can look at those numbers in Classroom. But this year we had probably about 86 people register, probably about 30 or 40 that come to the interactive session, because we have a YouTube video that goes up every Monday at 1 Central, which is a pre-recorded class where I walk through different aspects of the Mac and teach you how to do it with special guests. You're on one, actually a couple of them, and then there's another person that showed up to do some demos. But the numbers are out, they're through the roof, and I don't expect them to go up. Now, we have that iPad for all computing class coming up, And that's probably not going to deter nobody away from using the Mac, but it's just about personal preference and what you can do. The biggest issue, not issue, but I think the big thing for now with the numbers going up is you said $1,000 plus for the Mac. Well, you can get a Mac Mini for $699, and that's with the M1 chip. And I seen on Amazon the other day that you can get a MacBook Air with 512 gigabytes of storage space and 8 gigabytes of RAM for only $850. So I mean, the prices for Macs are definitely going down.
Well, they are, and I'll be honest with you. That's a very good point. I completely overlooked the Mac Mini because I just didn't think about it. But you're absolutely right. There is a Mac that's well under $1,000. Of course, you got to just provide the accessories. But if people already have a keyboard, a display that they like, or a TV even that they can hook that Mac into, that's and technically, you don't even need a display to use the Mac Mini. If you're visually impaired, you use a voice over screen. You and I have talked about how, we advise having a TV or something in case you need that sighted help. But I mean, it definitely is possible. And so therefore, you are absolutely correct. It's possible to get a Mac for $600-700 with the M1 chip. And, you mentioned the iPad for all computing class, which, of course, we're very excited about. And, the fact that they don't need to deter folks from either one, and they don't need to cannibalize each other. And I think that's such a good point because Apple has made it very clear that that's their intention, to keep both platforms strong, to keep innovating on both platforms, and really that they never want customers to feel like they have to choose. It's never been created to be that way. Apple has really made that very, very clear in recent interviews and stuff, that we should not think about it as which one is going to be the winner, which one is going to be the key device. Now, for some of us, that happens just because of, as you said, personal preference, which brings me to, an interesting subject. When people sign up for these classes and when they take the training that you and I both offer, of course, we've often said, because you and I are co-workers, we're friends, brothers in Christ. When they get one of us, they get both of us. We both sort of get involved in that. But we've also sort of been developing more and more, I think, a pattern where you are the Mac guy and I tend to do more the iOS and iPad stuff, even though you're also, equally knowledgeable and qualified to do iOS. But it seems to be the way the trend is going. And that brings me to the topic that I want to talk about. We both recently made a bit of a change in our technology here.
Right. Like you said, I know the Mac, iOS. We both know both of them. But in recent months, we figured out that one wasn't getting enough attention as the other. And for the choice for a customer standpoint or for free classes to be offered. I mean, a little over a year ago, we launched a month with the Mac class. Now it's more with the Mac. And I kind of fell into that, role because that would be time for you to take a little bit of a step back, even though you showed up to all the classes, but to deal with more of your other stuff, your paid part of your business, which is your home automation, customers that buy the premium package, whatever the case may be. But I bought the MacBook or the iPad Pro 12.9 inch last year, and you also bought the M1 Mac. Well, the Mac class has been getting a lot more of my attention ever since September because I wanted to make sure I was ready to teach new things and things of that nature. So my iPad Pro was collecting dust. So earlier this week, it got sold. You, the same thing. I mean, you have always been the iPad person, iPad for all computing, and you got an M1 because there were some certain, there were some clients that required certain things that you needed to do with screen share and stuff of that nature. But more recently, that has not been necessary. So your M1 probably is about to be sold this week, right?
It's funny because I think when I got that Mac, and don't get me wrong, the Mac is a beautiful, beautiful system, and that 24-inch iMac is like nothing else. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. Just as I know you would say the same thing about the iPad. But what's funny is that I think a lot of people thought, I know some people in my family thought that once I got that Mac, that was going to become the primary machine, that I would sort of just fall into that. And if anything, it had the exact opposite effect. Maybe people would say I'm stubborn, but I wasn't trying to do this. But what it really did was it just made the resolve all that much stronger to say, wow, this is awesome on the Mac, but I got to figure out a way to do this on the iPad, which is the device that I really love, that I use every single day. And that's what has happened. And as I've been able to do that, that Mac has, it should be in a place where it's getting the attention and the use that it deserves. And it's just not here. Whatever happens in the future, the kids are vying for a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro. Well, really the Pro, because my son likes the Touch Bar. We may do that. We may not, but we probably will, because usually if my kids want something, praise God, I can get it for them. They'll get it. But they'll use it more than I.
Especially in your school district, because in my school district, my kids will all get MacBook Airs once they got to high school anyway, because we're an all Apple district.
Right.
Yours, on the other hand,
right.
Chromebooks and all. Who I don't even know what the computer would be at high school level. So.
Yeah, it's Chromebooks. And I think this does offer something really unique for both of us too, because, you and I are both, obviously we need to, earn an income, but we're not in this for the money. We give the glory to God and he leads us. And, we certainly, we know the importance of a worker getting his wages, but, I would rather give the Mac customers to you and let you really devote the passion and the energy and the expertise that you have to that, rather than me trying to force something that isn't really where my heart is. Again, I don't have any problems with the Mac. If you're going to get a traditional computer, there is nothing better than the Mac. Absolutely. But, for me, but for me, I'd rather train an iPad customer any day.
Right. And for me, it's all personal preference. And if you buy it with your money, you do with it what you want. But it just, when I see messages on email lists about how can you install Windows on an M1, and I don't even open those, because to me, why would you want to put steak on the same plate as bologna? That's just, maybe I'm biased, but and I understand some people have to have Windows because of the corporate world and the business side of things. Most people drift towards Microsoft and Windows, but if you can do it on a Mac, do it on a Mac. Don't supplement with creating a boot camp partition on an Intel-based Mac so you can do that. That's, again, personal preference. That's just me. Do what you want with your hard-earned money, but in my house, you're not going to find a Windows virtual machine or otherwise. So.
Well, even to touch on the topic of the corporate world, which, yes, it is true that sadly there's still a lot of companies that sort of force you to use Windows, but, it's getting more and more to where, and if you look at the, folks, we just completed doing a demo as part of our More with the Mac class on Pages. And so by the time you are hearing this, you may have already heard that demo, or maybe not. But, we talked about in there how you can easily export an Apple Pages document to Microsoft Word or PDF or many other formats. Well, the same is true with the Keynote presentation app. You can go to PowerPoint or the Excel, numbers, the Apple numbers. You can go to Excel if you need to for your spreadsheets. So it's completely possible. And if you really have to, you can even install Microsoft Office on a Mac. I don't recommend that. I think the Apple suite that they often refer to as iWork, you don't hear that term too much anymore, but it's, Pages, Numbers, Keynote. I think it's far better than MS Office. But the point is, you have that option.
And on top of that, really, when you get a new Mac, you get all those Apple apps free. You don't have to pay for them.
That's right. You do not have to pay for them. Nope.
Back to what you were saying about the YouTube thing, it's, it just made it a whole lot easier for us to get the content, not only to our students, but people that might just, how do you navigate VoiceOver or do Apple Mail on a Mac with VoiceOver? And if somebody's searching for that in Google, more than likely they're going to come to the More with the Mac playlist. Or
That's right.
how do you create a Pages document on the iPad with voiceover or without? They're probably going to come to your iPad for All Computing class playlist or tutorial audio tutorial. So it just makes it a lot easier for us to get the content to everybody, not just the people who sign up for our classes.
Right, exactly. It does, and I think here again, both of us have found in our respective preferred platforms, if you want to call it that. We've found ways to really easily get content up to YouTube, and so that has led to the creation of some new things that'll be coming up. I think probably on Stir It Up, and some new things we've started on the TTJ YouTube channel. Now we have a TTJ Tech Show, as we're calling it. We'll be releasing new episodes of that every Friday, and sometimes there'll be bonus episodes in between also, especially right now to promote this iPad class, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But we have new episodes every Friday, product reviews, tutorials, the things of that nature.
And your YouTube channel is also the place that people are going to be able to find these free cafes you got coming up, like I forgot what the Apple Watch one is called, but you also got one called Messages. What is it called? Apple Messages.
Yeah, effective use of iMessage apps, which we're going to talk a lot about the various little apps within the Messages app, and the stickers and the apps, different things that you can do. And yes, that one's free, and the Apple Watch one is free. So those will be found on the YouTube page. And then if you have, we also have some paid ones, and there'll be more released throughout the year, but we have a paid course on the Apple TV and TV in the 21st century. We'll talk about how to use Apple TV with and without voiceover. We'll talk about cutting the cord and, media streaming. And then that one is paid. And then we have two courses that also we've gotten a lot of requests for. One is Pages for iPad. So we'll really delve into using Pages as a word processing and page layout app, writing books, writing reports, all sorts of things there. And the audio editing course, which will feature GarageBand. This one's for the iPad. We may do one later for the Mac, but we'll have to see. We don't know yet. But this one will be for the iPad, so it will feature GarageBand for iPad OS and iOS, and it will also feature a couple other iPad apps that are really great for audio editing. So those are paid, and the other ones are no cost. So if you're interested in learning more or signing up for any of those, you can send an email to us at support@ttjtech.net and just let us know which course you want. Send a separate email for each course so we can keep things easy.
Right. So the iPad for All Computing, what I like to call the crown jewel of the TTJ instructor team. Because that's actually the course that we first taught that launched, this whole training season that you came up with. I mean, I've been on board since the beginning. So,
it's the first one that.
No, I was just gonna say we started with the iPad, and then you said, "Hey, we got this response for the iPad. How about do iOS? I forgot what we called it in the beginning, but now it's called VoiceOver In and Out." So.
Voiceover in and out. Well, and I love to tell this story. We'll only take a couple minutes here, make it quick as we can, but I love to tell the story of how this all came to be, and then get your perspective of it also. But back in 2018, there was a conference media event, which Apple often holds media events, and this one was March 27th. And it was held in Chicago, which was very unusual for Apple because normally it's Cupertino or it's, one of the big conference centers, or it's Apple Park now or whatever. But they held this one in Chicago, and it was said to be an education-focused event. And it was. They did a lot with their apps for education and even released some new apps that day and new features and so forth. But they also released what they were calling the 6th generation iPad at that time. And I had only a passing interest in it ahead of time. In fact, I didn't even watch the conference live or the keynote live. I don't remember what I was doing, but I didn't watch it live. And I thought, I don't have need of this iPad because I have an iPad already that I'm perfectly happy with. So, whatever. And then when I finally did watch it later that night, it really amazed me how much functionality and really all of the best features that really mattered at the time were packed into an iPad that was only $300, $329 for consumers, $299 for, education. And I remember I said to you, Cliff, I said at that time, I think that Apple has revolutionized something once again, and they may not even get credit for it because it's not a major new product category like when they launched the iPad or the Apple Watch or anything, so it's not going to get that kind of media focus and media attention. But what they did was they transformed the way people learn, because even to this day in 2022, there's not a Chromebook in the world and very few Windows PCs, if any, that can keep up with the iPad, that can do what it can do and do it as well. And so, that was the earthly. There was, of course, we really believe we were led by the Holy Spirit of God. I'm not afraid or ashamed to talk about that. If that's not your belief, that's okay. We still love you. But that's what I believe wholeheartedly, was that God led us to do this. But one of the earthly things that he used was the release of this iPad, because what I then said was, if people knew the kinds of things that they could do with the iPad, if they knew they could create documents and write books and create audio and make movies and edit, all of these types of things, they would really love this device. And so what I decided to do was to say, okay, we're gonna advertise this course. At that time, we called it Replacing Your Traditional Computer with an iPad. We changed the name since then because we feel even if a person doesn't want to do that, they can still use the iPad and benefit from it. But at that time, that's what it was called. And we said, and then I asked Trainer Cliff if he'd come on board, which I'll let him tell you his side of that in a moment. But I just say that we said if I get 10 students sign up for this, we'll call it a success. If we get less than that, then I won't do the course. I'll just train them individually and work out the pricing and so forth. Well, we got 47 students for that course, and that is the smallest of any of the classes that we have taught since then. What was it last year, Cliff? It was over 100, wasn't it?
About 185, I think.
Right. So why don't you tell them your perspective on that whole thing, and then I'll tell them why we started offering a voiceover course too, because that's also an interesting story.
So, like I said, me and Matt, we've been tossing stuff back and forth to each other since probably about 2014, maybe a little sooner than that. And at the time, I was running a business, and I was using a MacBook Air. Might have been a Pro. I actually don't remember. That was eons ago. But anyways, when he seen this, I had actually told him about the iPad keynote, the education based or driven keynote, because it was held in my hometown of Chicago. I was like, oh, nice for them to do that there about the iPad. And I saw the iPad, but I had already bought and sold 2 iPads by that time, because to me it was a waste of real estate. But really, what it was is I didn't know how to use it. So when he presented me with the idea of having replacing a traditional computer with an iPad course, I was like, okay, I'll help you out with it. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to be learning at the same time, because I've really never cared for the iPad. The different, like I just mentioned a few seconds ago, it wasn't the fact that it was, a thing that I didn't know how to use. It was that I didn't know how to use it, not that it was a bad device. Again, a lot of real estate, but if you don't know how to use it, you may be a bit overwhelmed or, taken aback, like, how do I handle this? Plus the fact that by this time, Apple had released Bluetooth keyboard support with the iPad, and that's something that I had never done with the iPad. And, we'll talk about it a little bit more here in a bit, but now they have keyboard cases. I mean, there's so many to choose from that makes it look like a laptop that you could just stick in your purse or, handbag or whatever the case may be. So the bottom line is, as we were teaching this class and I would put in my 2 cents where I knew how, is I was learning at the same time. And that's where the phrase that I say, the rotor is your friend, because when you learn the iPad and learn how to replace it, with your or for your computer or in addition to, if you don't use that rotor, you are really going to be lost. And that's the thing that really drove it home for me. Once I knew that the rotor was, because even on my phone before taking that iPad class, I didn't use my rotor on my phone. I would just tap to where I thought something was, swipe to it, and call it a day. I would not use my rotor. Now that's all I use to get to where I want because it helps you skip over all that extra stuff in between and get to it. But yes, when he first brought it to me, I was a little hesitant because I didn't use an iPad. So I learned at the same time that I was pretty much a student in that first class with a few extra tidbits because I had done a little bit more experience with iOS. And back then iOS was on the iPad and the phone pretty much the same way. There were some apps that functioned a little bit different, but essentially it was the same thing. Now we have iPad OS and it's a whole nother ball game. So but that's where we came from and teaching the iPad class that this should take us right into the next one. We assumed that everybody knew how to use voiceover. Boy, was that the biggest mistake we ever made.
It was a monumental mistake. It was one of the most humbling moments that I had experienced in a long time as far as in teaching, because I really didn't even give it a thought, and I guess that in some part of the recesses of my mind, I assumed that the people who were taking this course were already iPhone users, who would want to add this device into their collection of Apple devices, And so we have learned so much since that time, though. We really have learned a lot, and we are still learning. Of course, we still don't pretend to know it all, that's for sure. But, we learned so much already. And one of the things that we had done at that time, with a smaller crowd, you could just ask questions, it wasn't force muted. And so somebody asked a question in the midst of our teaching how to do something. And I don't even remember what we were teaching at that moment on the iPad, but they said, how do you control this, or how do you do this? And I said, well, that option is going to be in the rotor. That's where you'll find that. It's in the rotor. And the person responded to me. I'll never forget this. And the person responded to me and simply said, "What's the rotor?" And I think there was a period of silence where my jaw dropped to the floor because I just was totally unprepared for for that experience. And we all looked back, and in our next, sort of regrouping after that and debriefing, we both came to the very quick conclusion: there is no possible way to teach voiceover and iOS functionality at the same time. You can do a little bit of it. You can teach people how to get familiar with apps, and so you can use the Messages app and the Mail app, and you can teach some of the features and that sort of thing. But you can't really get in depth about the apps if you have to teach voiceover. And if people don't know voiceover, they can't use the apps. If you try to combine that, you end up with a course that is ridiculously long and also rather disjunct because it just doesn't have the flow that it needs to have. And that's kind of the moment we said, if they're not already prepared with voiceover, if they don't have at least a reasonable working knowledge of the screen reader itself, then as a visually impaired user, and of course we also have some sighted folks, so they don't need to know voiceover unless they're training people on it. But, for the rest of them, they really have to have that foundation first. And that was one of the main reasons that then we started offering an entire curriculum, right? We had voiceover in and out, and, that was the jumping off place for people.
Right. We added stuff, as we got more familiar with the structure. Of course, we both have families, so we try to follow the school year schedule. But, in that first iPad class, we really didn't get much teaching done on the iPad because we had to answer so many voiceover questions.
Right. So, yep, that's true.
So we got the voiceover in and out. It was for the first couple of years, it was just voiceover in and out and iPad for all computing as what it's called now. I don't think we integrated anything into it until the third year where we got I forgot what you called them, but it was the February month where you had those small we call them cafes now, but I forgot what you called them back then.
Yeah, they were
Where
the midwinter mini courses we
yeah,
had.
that's it. That's it.
Yes. Yep.
Yep. And
Yeah.
then last year, of course, we were in a trainer meeting, and I said, "Hey, maybe we should start offering the Mac, because that's when the M1s were coming out." And no, this was actually just before the M1s. Nope, it was. It was right before they came because they were releasing the winter of
Yes, that
2019, was it?
it was 2020, and this was right before that. And yeah, it was right in it's sort of when we announced the course was sort of in tandem with the release of the M1 Max, I think. And
Right. And
we
I just said in passing, maybe we should offer, some basic Mac training. And then of course the training schedule comes out and it says Turner Cliff month with the Mac. I said, "What?" So that's how the Mac portion of our training schedule was born.
voiceover course to being the first one of the training season each year in the fall. And then we've got we've got the more with the Mac course, usually right after Christmas at this point. And then these digital cafes, as we're calling them, that, people can sign up for, which will actually be throughout the year. I love the way we do these cafes, and it really was Trainer Cliff's idea. We do the YouTube portion, just like he's doing with the Mac class. And we can do a lot of teaching that way, and people can listen to it whenever they choose to. That's the other benefit, because we've had so many people say, we'd love to take this course, but we don't know that we can attend every Monday and Wednesday. We have work, we have doctor's appointments, we have other commitments, and we just can't be sure. So is it going to be recorded? Well, now you don't have to worry about that. With the cafes, it goes up on YouTube, and then you can listen whenever you choose. And then we have the interactive session. And the interactive session does give us a chance to teach some little tidbits and tricks, as well as to take live questions and actually, interact with people. So it's a great setup, and the that will continue. And then the iPad course begins in March and will run from March to the end of May. But another interesting thing too, Cliff, is that we've discovered that one of the main reasons for these cafes is because we can't teach it all in one class. We've tried to teach Pages and GarageBand and Apple Clips and Numbers and all of those things, Keynote, in the iPad class. And we'll always give a little introduction to them, I think, because people need to know that they can do these things. But what we've found is that one of two things happened. Either the people who did not have any interest in those apps at all just became bored and overwhelmed, or the people who really wanted to seriously use them weren't getting enough information because they want to go further than what we had time to take them in the class. And so that's another reason for these cafes, right?
Right. And on top of that, I mean, I guess that's another reason why we have a help session every Tuesday at 2 Eastern, 1 Central, 12 Mountain, 11 Pacific. But in the class, we can't answer all your questions. And that's why we have a support at ttjtech.net email address, and the help sessions on Tuesday. But during class time, it's so much easier. I mean, if you want to come and listen live, that's fine. They'll go up on YouTube, edit it out with all the extra banter out of there. I mean, it's fine during the thing, but when somebody's wanting to learn, they don't want to hear all that. So I took it upon myself to start editing out the unnecessary commentary and putting it up on YouTube, and that also gives people a chance to, like you just said, listen when they can, stream it, save it to a playlist, whatever the case may be. And when you record it, I found with the Mac course, when you record it, you can get so much more taught into 1 hour, as in you're teaching for an hour, but 30 minutes of that is, extra commentary or somebody putting something in the Zoom chat and distracting you, and maybe you feel you have to answer it right away so you don't lose that person as a student and doesn't get discouraged. But when you put it up on YouTube, they can write their questions down, email them in, or come to the help session and ask them then. To me, it just makes more sense to put it that way. That way, everybody can get it and you can do it on your own time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you're listening to this and you didn't get a chance to sign up for the Mac, more with the Mac class, it's not too late because I have a playlist on the Stirred Up YouTube page, which is STURITUP, or you can search for Mac OS 12. It's a playlist, and you can just go there, and all the classes, including the interactive sessions, are there for you to listen to whenever you want to.
Many people are anticipating a rumored spring event. I'm sure we will do another collaborative podcast episode at that time. When and if there is a spring event, we'll be happy to talk about all the products they announce once they are announced. Is there anything you're hoping to see, though, if there is a spring event or anything else this year?
Well, of course, there's rumors saying there's going to be a redesigned iMac Pro with the M2 chip and possibly being 26 or 27 inches. Nothing really. I mean, I got the iMac. I'm probably going to have this. The only reason I would update this Mac, and I highly doubt that they do it based on some things that people pointed out about it, is if they put Face ID in it. But how would you implement Face ID? How would you activate it? Push a button? Well, that's what Touch ID is for. So why even bother? So I see the reasoning behind people who write those articles, but I don't know. The biggest rumor that I've heard is uh, uh iPhone SE3 with 5G. So I mean, I'm not looking forward to it, but it would be nice to see. Some people seem to think that there's going to be some AirPod Pro third generation, or would this be second generation? As for anything that I'm looking for, I can't think of nothing. I mean, because the oldest device in my house is my iMac 24 inch. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I have the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I have the Apple Watch 7. I have a four or five HomePod minis. I guess that now that I say that, I guess I would be looking for the HomePod Apple TV combo that has been rumored to be coming out the last year and a
Yes,
half. That's what I would be
that's
doing.
probably the device that I'm the most excited about at this point, and that one's not even rumored to be out until at least next year. So we
Right.
probably, unless they're wrong, because they have been wrong before, but unless they're wrong, we aren't going to see that for a while. And I'm perfectly happy with the existing HomePods and Apple TVs, and I've been really impressed with the fact that, I know my customers probably were not impressed, but I was really impressed with the fact that the Apple TV was so back ordered over the
Yeah.
Christmas holiday, because that tells me it's selling well, and I think it deserves to. A lot of people look at that $199 or $179 price tag, and they say, boy, I could get an Amazon Fire Stick or a Roku or a Chromecast stick for, 20, $30, whatever it is. Why would I buy an Apple TV? And it's one of those things that's hard to put into words. Yes, they both access Netflix. They both access Disney Plus. They do similar things. But until you experience what the Apple devices are like, the seamlessness of the integration and the smooth performance, and how the Apple TV app keeps track of what you're watching across all devices with iCloud and just voiceover, even, you don't realize how much better that Apple TV is than any other media streaming device that's out there. So it's a device that deserves to do well.
And I can speak from experience on that one because I started with the Apple TV on the third generation. That was back in 2012. And the only thing that I regret is waiting so long because even back then, it was so seamlessly accessible with voiceover, with the remote. You could get Netflix, YouTube, and some other apps that, came pre-installed on it. Now they've gone to the fourth generation in the 4K and the 4K HD versions where it has an app store and you can download what you want when you want. So,
That's
subscribe to
right.
services like Netflix and Paramount Plus, Peacock, Pluto. I mean, the list goes on. Some are free, some are paid. But again, until you experience it, you're not going to know what you're missing. And I guarantee you, when you
That's
do
right.
it, you're going to be mad you waited so long.
Exactly. Yep.
One last thing that I wanted to touch on, I wanted to go back to what you said about the iPad event back in 2018 about Apple revolutionizing it and not even getting no credit. Well, they really don't need no credit, but I guarantee you, Surface Books sales shows they're revolutionized because I guarantee you that iPads are still outselling them 3 to 1 like they were when they first started. I mean, because the iPad, when it first came out, it was like $700-800. Now you got the Pros where you can pay up to $1,800-1900 depending on the configuration that you get. But for an iPad, a tablet to cost only $329 and everything that it can do. You can get a keyboard to make it look like a laptop and never have to pick up an actual physical computer again and get the job done. Schools, like I mentioned before, I live in an all Apple district. From third grade on up, you get an iPad. When you get to high school, you get a MacBook Air. I mean, it's just the Microsoft might have the corporate world sold up with some of their PCs, and I know some people are drifting towards the Mac now, but Apple has the education part sold up. I bet you in this state alone that Apple to Google Chromebooks is 4 to 1 because every district that I've lived in, and I've lived in a few of them, they've all been Apple. There's a few down in the inner, what they call the city area, the metropolitan area that uses Google, but most of the ones in the suburbs and stuff like that, we use Apple only devices. All right.
All right.
Like I said, we're right now, the more with the Mac classes going on, you can still, listen to the recordings. And if you want to come to the interactive session, send an email to support@ttjtech.net, and you'll get the information on when those are, or subscribe to the calendar. Cafes coming continuously for the rest of, the training season and probably into the summer. Don't forget to sign up for the iPad for All Computing class starting the first Monday in March, and subscribe to the Stirred Up YouTube page to get more tutorials. There may be some surprises, you never know. And Trainer Matt can tell you what he has going on.
Absolutely. Once again, get those emails in, support@ttjtech.net if you want to sign up for the classes. Don't forget the TTJ YouTube channel, which we've already told you. New episodes coming every Friday. And keep, more cafes coming. And we've got lots and lots of exciting things coming up throughout the year. So we want to thank you. God bless you. And, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. If you are listening on YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so that you don't miss anything. And then you'll have the opportunity to hit that bell. And that means you'll never miss anything. You'll get notified when we upload anything. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Thanks to Trainer Cliff. Cliff, thanks so much. It's been great. We'll do it again. We'll be talking, especially if there's a spring event coming up. So
can't wait for it. You have a good one. God bless.
All right. You too. Thanks so much, everybody.